Yeah, basically that was like, it was raising money for the medical bills.
Yeah, and they were able to cover it.
Well, I mean, you know,
it's
it's cancer, so you never know when it's going to stop. But like we raised a lot of money, like way more than I ever would have thought the band I was in could have done. So it was like, it was really nice to be able to do that.
Yeah. I've always wondered this: how many artists do you have in your iTunes library?
In Chicago, I had that one guy.
That's a good question. Thousands. It's in the thousands.
In the like, what would you guess, 5,000 or closer to like 3, 2?
I don't even know. I never even thought to look, actually. It's a good question. Probably in the 2 to 3, maybe. Like.
Well, he's not.
And what album do you think people would be most surprised to learn that you own?
That's the thing with me is like I like so much dumb shit.
Well, clearly, pretty.
I don't know, like. I mean, there's like Trout Mask Replica, which is like by Captain Beefheart, which is like a classic record, but it's an unlistenable record to a lot of people. But that's in there, and
dude, you see the pictures of them in the Cowboys and stuff? Like Cowboy, like they were like
anything.
Like
like
Kim Noel and
so many weird records that I like.
Crisscross or like something like that.
No, but I do have like. I mean, certainly when I was 12 years old, I was listening to Crisscross. I was also listening to Nevermind, but like. Surprising in that way. Like I have the Right Said Fred record, the first Right Said Fred record.
How are the songs besides I'm Too Sexy?
There's I'm Too Sexy, and then there was Don't Talk Just Kiss, and then I don't remember any of the rest of it. But like there are a couple good songs.
Yeah.
Like one of the ones that always sticks out in my mind is like a weird record that came out, and I was like 8 years old. Duran Duran, Big Thing. It wasn't like a big hit Duran Duran. It wasn't Rio, but it was like their like 87 record, I think. And like, it's a fucking great record. And then they came back with Duran Duran self-titled, and that was with like Ordinary World, and that was like in their early 90s hit period. But there was like a record right in the middle of that, like 87, 88, called Big Thing, and I love that record.
And then you obviously got the Neurotic Outsiders album that guy did with Steve Jones,
and that was just like, okay, it's Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols and the guys from Guns N' Roses. It was like it was like the perfect melding of like dumb shit that I liked from throughout my life, and like it's a shitty record. It's not a good record, but like. Nasty Ho when you're fucking 12 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old, whatever, like, it's kind of a funny song.
Yep.
And then I went and saw All once when I was in high school. I might have been out of high school. It might have been 2000 maybe, like 2000, 2001. Saw All, and this band opened up called Wretch Like Me, and they covered Nasty Ho, and I was watching it, and Stephen Edgerton came out and played it with them, and I was like, holy shit, I knew that was like the one song I knew from that band. I was like rocking out, and I was like, we should cover this song. It's cool. Like Stephen Edgerton from the Descendants knows it. Like it's cool. Like so we covered it just because we thought it was funny, and like Jeff and I both had that record, and like we were both into that band. Jeff's younger than I am, but we both like kind of discovered it at the same ages. He just like discovered it later. It was, I don't know, it was weird, but like we decided to cover it, and it's a fucking stupid song.
It's a fun song.
Sexist piece of shit song, but it was funny at the time. I don't know.
Did ABC No Rio ban you guys?
They banned us, and I assume it was because of that.
Okay.
Like we had our lyrics printed on our website, and like we don't have like that's the most sexist the Ergs ever got, I think. Aside from like, I love you, you're cute. Like I don't know, like every song I ever wrote was never like meant as like a sex. Like Nasty Ho might have been the only sexist thing I ever sang. Like
Steve Jones wrote that.
But we got banned from ABC No Rio, and I was just like, was it because of Nasty Ho? Like that's the only thing I can think of that would have been a problem in our catalog. And at that point, it was like, we hadn't, like, Dork Rock wasn't out, like, none of that shit. The Ben Queller EP wasn't even out. It was just, like, our EPs, or our, like, demos, and, like, our 7-inch, which is, like, Nasty Ho came free with, like, a 7-inch. And it was just, like, that's the only song I could think of that has anything that could be misconstrued as, like, sexist. Which it is sexist. Like, I'm not saying that we were, you know, right in covering it, but, like, we were stupid fucking 20-year-olds when we recorded it. Like, I wanted to leave it off of Hindsight, but it was out, and, like, might as well put it on there if it's, you know.
Well, there was some stuff missing from Hindsight, like, That's It Bye. I don't know if that came out afterwards.
Came out after, okay. Yeah. Like, anything that came out after was left off, but there will be a Hindsight 2.
Okay. Is that what it's going to be called? Hindsight's 2022?
Yeah, it's going to be, I believe, it's going to be Hindsight is 2020, Volume 2, Okay Enough Reminiscing. So it's going to be all Dirty Work references. But, yeah, it'll be everything commercially released that's not on Hindsight. So, like, the goal is, if you have Dork Rock, Upstairs Downstairs, Ben Queller EP, Jersey's Best Prancers, and then the 2 singles collections, you have everything we ever recorded.
Alright. I'm going to go off topic, but you mentioned Dirty Work. Are you an Artie Lang fan?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You hear he was back on the radio for, like, the first time in years the other day?
I didn't hear that.
He was,
not on Stern, right?
No.
Because I've been listening to Stern. Like, I'm like a avid, huge fucking Stern fan. But, like, yeah, if he's still playing.
He guest hosted, like, one of those sports shows.
Like the Norm thing, or like?
No, it was with Nick DiPaolo, the comedian from Boston. I'm trying to remember the Tony Bruno show.
I love Nick DiPaolo too, and I love that he's like Mr. Boston, and like he's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
I love that he played a Boston cop in Beerly in Artie's movie. Like, so great. That was a perfect role for him. But anyway.
He hosted a radio show again. I'll send you the link. They have the
I would love
podcast
to see it.
version.
I'd love to hear it. Yeah, like, because Howard like doesn't want him on. Like he wants to make sure that he's okay, because that's fucking gnarly shit that happened with him. And like Howard doesn't want anything to do with like bringing him back at a time that he doesn't need to be back in the spotlight. You know, like because it's a big show, and he feels like I think that Howard feels pretty responsible for like the bullshit that happened with Artie, even though like if you're that fucked up, you're that fucked up. Like you're fucked up. Like nothing's gonna change it unless something drastic happens. Stern rules, and don't think he's like Mr. Sexist, because he's not. Like he's.
Yeah, and Mikey Erg is a fan of the Chad Walls of the Damned record.
Yes.
What about
anything Richard Christie does? Richard Christie is like a drumming idol for me. Ever since I found out about him, and I was just like listening to him, he can fucking play the drums, and I'll never play like that.
Do you have like if you had to name one drummer that's like your favorite? Do you have one?
I mean, there are a lot. There are a lot. I mean, Bill Stevenson obviously is a huge influence. But, like, from here, some New Hampshire, Maine, Boston pride, like, Chris Pierce is probably him and Duncan from Snuff from England. Like, they're the 2 people that made me realize, like, I could play drums and sing at the same time. And they're both incredible drummers, and I owe a lot to both of them. And then we got to work with, like, Chris Pierce happened to move to New Brunswick, and we got to, like, we just haphazardly just, like, wrote him, and we're like, hey, would you want to record this dumb band that we have? And he was like, yeah. And we recorded some shit with him, like, just some, like, what ended up being Thrash Compactor and a couple comp tracks and stuff, and the country 7-inch. Like, we just went in and recorded a bunch of dumb shit with him, and just to see if it sounded good, and it sounded great. So then we went and did basically almost everything else we ever did with him. So, and he's a huge influence on me, and it was really hard for me to play and sing in front of him. But yeah.
Could you name like a favorite artist? Like, do you have one, or would there just be
like
too many?
Of
all time?
All time? Like, it's tough.
What about like so much shit. 5 of them?
I mean, my favorite band in the world is probably XTC. Because they're so weird, and they're weird and poppy. They're like the perfect mix of like weird Beatle-esque pop and weird
new wavy,
funky, new wavy kind of shit. And that, like, it's just and Andy Partridge is a like huge lyrical influence on me in the same way that John Lennon and the Beatles. The Beatles are probably my first favorite band of all time. Like, apparently my first words were yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, from what my mom tells me. And like the early 80s, like, she would bring out her Beatles records, and I was like, yeah, 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 the Beatles. And like, and John Lennon, I always loved John Lennon's wordplay, and I always tried to copy that, and Andy Partridge has that too, and Elvis Costello kind of was influenced by John Lennon in that respect, and like, so Elvis Costello, John Lennon, or the Beatles, and XTC, and I love Joe Jackson in the same kind of vein of like Angry Young Man, fucking punk for a few years, and then ventured out into other things. And like, I like that, like, you get into it from the punk thing because that's what you can understand, and then you realize you can expand upon that, like. So those are probably my like 4 favorite. Like the Beatles are probably number 1 because that's my first favorite band. But like Elvis Costello too, as a songwriter.
Yeah, it was funny.
Not that I'm any at all as good as Elvis Costello or the Beatles or XTC, but those are like probably my 3 favorite songwriting influences.
Do you listen to like the Adam Carolla podcast at all?
I have, yeah.
Speaking of Stern, and he's always saying his favorite artists are Elvis Costello. Who's the other guy you just mentioned? New Wave.
Joe Jackson.
Yeah, Joe Jackson.
That's
Pretenders and
Chrissy Hine's
some other guy who I can't remember.
That's rad. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's fucking awesome, though.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean everybody. Like if I had 3 bands that I could say everybody should listen to, it's XTC, Elvis Costello, and the Attractions, and the Beatles. Like, those are like, if you have those collections in your, and then you go into other genres and like punk, like Black Flag and the Minutemen. Like there's a ton of fucking bands out there that are worth listening to. But those are 3 songwriters. As a songwriter, like, those are 3 crazy, like, amazing influences for me.
What about albums?
Yeah, albums. Well, Minutemen, Double Nickels on a Dime, like, that taught me, like, you didn't have to stick to a formula. Like, your formula was, you could be all over the place for 80 minutes and be awesome. And, like, XTC did those records, too. Like, XTC did English Settlement, which is, like, 80 minutes of just, like, every fucking thing you could throw at an audience. And then the Beatles did the White Album, which was like double album, for like one of the first double albums ever. Anything you could throw at anybody. Like, fuck it, we're the Beatles. Listen to all this shit. Fuck you. Like, like I love that kind of. That's kind of what the Ergs did as a whole, because we were all like super influenced by everybody. But on Upstairs Downstairs, we were just like, okay, here's a few pop punk songs. Here's a slow song. Here's a song that kind of sounds like Fugazi. Here's a song that kind of sounds like Johnny Cash. Here's a song that kind of sounds like this, and then here's a song that is 18 minutes of noise. Like, it's just like we kind of tried to throw everything, at the audience, and I don't know if it worked.